The thing is, I did not think I was humiliating my husband. I thought I was telling the truth in front of women who already understood me. 2 lunchboxes, 1 pink backpack, and of course Mason stood there holding everything like it was his natural place. I said he was basically the family servant because I had already given this family a daughter. By the next morning, our daughter had told a school counselor she wanted to live with him. My name is Amanda, I was 32, and I managed marketing for a boutique fitness studio where young mothers paid to remember they still had bodies, friends, and names. The thing is, I was good at making freedom look clean. 2 water bottles, 1 stroller outside the dance studio door. And of course I believed I understood what women lost when they became mothers. The dance studio lobby smelled like wet coats, floor cleaner, and the sweet powder the little girls used on their ballet shoes. Lily sat on the bench with 1 foot lifted while Mason tied the ribbon on her shoe. My husband had her pink backpack open beside him, with the snack box, water bottle, spare tights, and the permission slip folded in the front pocket. He did things like that. Quiet things. Useful things. The kind everyone praised because they did not have to live under them. A mother near the coat rack told me Mason was amazing with Lily. She said some dads barely knew the class schedule. I smiled because that was what a mother was supposed to do when another woman praised her husband. Still, the compliment landed wrong. It made him look rare for doing what I had been doing since my body had belonged to someone else for 9 months. Mason looked up and asked if I wanted coffee after class. He had remembered I liked the little place near the studio, the one with cinnamon syrup and narrow tables by the window. Years before, after Lily was born, he used to bring me coffee at 4 in the morning and walk the baby around the apartment so I could sleep for another hour. He would come back with spit up on his shoulder and no complaint in his mouth. Back then, I called that love. Later, I started calling it basic father duty. After class, Lily ran to him first. Her tights were crooked, and her hair had come loose from the bun I had tied too fast. Mason knelt and fixed both without asking anyone to see. He asked softly if something had changed between us since I went back to full-time work. Not angry, not dramatic, just that careful voice that made every answer feel like a form waiting for my signature. I told him nothing had changed. I said I was tired. I said motherhood did not mean I had to disappear. Of course, he nodded like he understood. My phone buzzed then. Brielle had sent a message saying young moms were allowed to have a life before they became unpaid house managers. I looked at Mason holding Lily's pink backpack and smiled before I could stop myself. The fitness studio office smelled like lemon wipes, rubber mats, and the vanilla protein powder our clients pretended tasted like dessert. I sat at my desk building a campaign called Still Her, with photos of young mothers laughing after class, hair loose, rings on, children nowhere in the frame. The thing is, the whole idea was mine. I had told the owner that mothers did not want to be praised for sacrifice anymore. They wanted proof they still existed. Brielle loved the campaign before the owner did. She leaned over my shoulder, one hand around an iced coffee, and said, husbands should be like subscription services. Childcare, driving, groceries, repairs, emotional support, all billed quietly in the background. I told her not to say it like that. Then I laughed. 2 women. 1 office. No harm, I told myself. Brielle was divorced, but not in the sad way people expected. She dressed like divorce had improved her lighting. She wore gold hoops to morning meetings and said marriage had trained her to apologize for wanting lunch alone. I liked being near her because she made rest sound brave and resentment sound modern. She asked what Mason was doing that afternoon. I said school pickup, dance payment, dentist form, dinner, probably some saint routine near the laundry. Brielle said that was not a routine, that was staff. I laughed again, but softer, because the word had a shape I did not want to examine. At home, Mason had already packed Lily's school folder. The kitchen table was covered with tiny signs of his care. A clean lunchbox, a library book, a purple sweater because Lily said the classroom was cold near the window. The pink backpack sat open like a small mouth waiting to be fed. He asked if I had signed the reading afternoon form. I said I thought he had handled it. He said he had, but the school wanted both parents listed for volunteer time. I told him to put himself down because he was better at that kind of thing. He looked at me for 1 second too long. Then he wrote his name. The next morning, the school curb was slick from overnight rain. Cars moved slowly past the gate, and the air smelled like asphalt, wet leaves, and cafeteria toast. Mason got Lily out of the car while I checked a work message. He had her backpack on one shoulder, her lunchbox in one hand, and my coffee in the other because I had asked him to hold it for a second near the apartment and never taken it back. Kendra Fox stood near the gate in a camel coat, smiling the way school mothers smile when they are deciding who belongs to which version of the morning. She said Mason looked more prepared than the teachers. I said he had 7 years of practice. Kendra laughed. Alina, our neighbour, did not. Brielle had walked over from the parking lane because her niece went to the same school. She looked Mason up and down with the backpack, lunchbox, art folder, and coffee. She said he was trained better than most husbands. I should have cut the joke there. Instead, I let the word trained sit between us. Mason handed Lily her lunchbox and told her to have a good day. Lily hugged him around the neck. She gave me a quick kiss because I leaned down and offered my cheek. That difference bothered me, so I made it smaller in my head. Children cling to the parent who carries snacks. That was all. That evening, Mason waited until Lily was in the bath. He stood in the hallway with a towel over one shoulder and asked why I laughed when Kendra and Brielle called him trained. His voice was specific and factual. He said he wanted to know what I meant by letting that word stay. I told him everyone jokes about marriage. I said fathers did not get medals for participating in their own child's life. He said he was not asking for a medal. He said he was asking why I made him sound like staff. There it was. Staff. He had found the real word and placed it on the table without raising his voice. What he meant was that I had hurt him in front of people. What I heard was that he wanted credit for doing the boring work I had been forced to do from the beginning. My mother used to stand at our kitchen sink with cracked hands, saying women disappeared one packed lunch at a time. I had watched her become tired enough to stop wanting anything. I had promised myself that would never be me. So I told Mason that if the word bothered him, maybe he should ask why it sounded believable. His face changed by almost nothing. He folded the towel once, then again, though it was already folded. Later, after Lily slept, my phone lit up with Brielle's message. She had written that Mason had full domestic employee energy. I deleted it before Mason came back from checking Lily's nightlight. Not because it was wrong. Of course not. I deleted it because he would read it the dramatic way, and I was tired of being made responsible for how softly he bruised. The next night, Lily sat on her bed while Mason brushed her hair. She asked him what a trained husband was. Mason stopped for half a second, then kept brushing. He said it was a grown-up joke that did not matter. I stood in the doorway with folded pajamas in my hand and pretended I had not heard the question. The pickup line outside Oak Ridge Elementary always had its own weather. Rain on coats, exhaust from idling cars, cafeteria food drifting through the side door when the kitchen staff took out trash. That Thursday the sky hung low and grey, and every parent looked damp and annoyed before the bell even rang. The thing is, I was late, but not irresponsibly late. There is a difference. I had come straight from a studio content shoot where 3 clients told me the Still Her campaign made them feel seen. One woman had said she cried in her car after reading the caption. Another said her husband did not understand how much she missed herself. I drove to school still carrying that praise on my skin. Mason was already at the curb. Of course he was. He had Lily's pink backpack hanging from his shoulder, her raincoat folded over one arm, her art folder tucked under his elbow, and a snack container in his hand because Lily always came out hungry on Thursdays. He also had my umbrella because I had left it in the car that morning and he had brought it without making me ask. Brielle stood near Kendra under the school awning. She saw Mason before she saw me and smiled like the line had been written for her. She said Mason looked like he was running a private family concierge desk. Kendra laughed first. 2 other mums turned their heads. Someone near the bike rack smiled without knowing what she was joining. Mason heard it. He did not answer. He only shifted Lily's backpack higher on his shoulder and looked toward the doors. That quietness annoyed me. It always did when people were watching. His silence made him look patient and made me look sharp. So I stepped into the joke before the room could decide without me. I told them Mason was not really the man of the house anymore. I said he was basically the family servant. The laugh came thin, but it came. I should have stopped there. I had made the point. Everyone had heard the shape of my life. Young mother, busy mother, woman with work, woman with a body and a future and a right to breathe. But the laugh opened something in me. I said he did the bags, the lunches, the driving, the bedtime, the forms, and whatever else I needed because I had already done the hard part by giving him Lily. I said young mums were allowed to still have a life, and good husbands understood the job. Mason turned then. Not fast, not angry. His eyes moved from my face to the parents around us, then back to me. He looked tired in a way I did not want him to look tired, because tiredness gave him a claim I was not ready to pay. Lily came out with her class, holding a paper sunflower and wearing one sock lower than the other. She saw Mason first, smiled, then saw the way everyone was looking. Children read rooms before they read words. That is one of the things adults forget, because it makes us responsible. Mason knelt and held out her raincoat. He told her it might rain again. He did not mention my sentence. That was the quiet debrief before the real one. No raised voice, no public correction. Just a man kneeling with a coat while his wife made a room around him colder. I hated that picture. So I laughed once and told Lily that Daddy was busy being everyone's helper today. The words were smaller than the first ones. They did more damage. Lily did not put on the raincoat. She looked at the pink backpack on Mason's shoulder. Then she reached for it. Mason said it was okay, that he had it. She pulled again. The strap slid down his arm into her hands. The backpack looked too big against her thin legs. One corner hit the wet pavement, and the little keychain shaped like a star clicked against the zipper. Lily told me that Daddy was not our servant. The pickup line changed in pieces. Kendra's smile fell first. Brielle looked down at her phone. One of the other mothers took a step back as if the curb had moved. Lily kept talking, not loudly, not like a child having a tantrum. She said Daddy took care of us. She said if anyone forgot how to care about the family, it was me. That was not how she would have said it if she had planned it. It was too plain, too clean. No adult rhythm, no performance. Just the thing she had been carrying because the rest of us kept handing her bags. Ms. Patel, the school counselor, had been standing near the door with a clipboard. Her face did not change much, but her body turned toward us. Mason touched Lily's shoulder and told her gently they should go home. He did not tell her to apologize. He did not tell her to stop. He did not tell me to fix it. I said Lily was being dramatic because Mason let her get away with everything. Nobody laughed. The thing is, silence in public feels different from silence at home. At home, you can fill it with dishes, doors, a television left on too low. Outside a school, with damp pavement under your shoes and other mothers pretending not to stare, silence has nowhere to hide. Mason took Lily's hand. She held the pink backpack in her other hand, dragging it slightly because it was heavy. He reached once, probably to help. She shook her head. For 1 second, I almost saw what everyone else was seeing. Not a servant. Not a weak man. A father whose child was trying to carry one small part of the weight back to him. Then Brielle touched my elbow and said, kids were intense at that age. I grabbed that sentence like a railing. Of course, Lily was 7. 7-year-olds loved drama. 7-year-olds repeated whatever made the room react. Mason opened the car door for Lily. He looked back once before getting in. I lifted my chin as if I had won something. The next morning, Ms. Patel asked Lily if she wanted to talk about what happened at pickup. The apartment smelled like toast, shampoo, and the lavender spray Mason used on Lily's pillow when she had trouble sleeping. The thing is, Home should have helped. 4 rooms, 1 child, and of course I thought the school scene would shrink once we got inside our own walls. It did not shrink. Lily would not let me help with homework. She sat at the dining table with her math worksheet tilted toward Mason and her shoulder turned slightly away from me. When I asked if she wanted apple slices, she said Dad already cut some. When I told her to choose pajamas, she said Dad knew which ones did not itch. Mason did not smile at that. He did not look proud. He only put a small bowl beside her and reminded her to finish the last 2 problems. That irritated me more than pride would have. If he had enjoyed being chosen, I could have called it a game. Instead, he looked sad, which made the choice look serious. After Lily went to brush her teeth, Mason sat across from me at the kitchen table. The pink backpack hung on the chair between us because Lily liked it near her while she worked. There was a smear of purple marker on the front pocket. Mason said the pickup line was not one incident anymore. He said it had become a pattern. He named the lunches, the school calls, the doctor forms, the dance fees, the birthday gifts, the night fevers, the teacher emails, and the mornings when Lily cried because her socks felt wrong and I had already left for early class filming. His voice stayed flat but not cold. That almost made it worse. Cold would have given me something simple. I told him he had never said he was tired. I said he never asked me to carry half. I said he had made his suffering look like a silent test and then acted wounded when I failed it. That was true. I knew it as I said it. Mason did not deny it. He looked down at his hands and said he should have spoken sooner. Then he said love should not have needed a receipt every time it moved through the house. I told him that sounded beautiful and solved nothing. What he meant was that he had been trying. What I heard was that he had built a quiet stage where he could look good and I could look selfish. My mother had done the opposite. She had served everyone loudly, then punished us for not clapping. I had sworn I would never turn into her. Now Mason made me feel accused by doing service without noise. I said he liked being useful because it made him look like the better parent. His mouth closed. He pushed the backpack gently away from the edge of the chair so it would not fall. That small movement made me want to scream. The next day, Paige called. My sister did not soften things unless someone was in the hospital. She said Kendra had told someone from her church group, and somehow the school pickup story had reached her. She asked what I had said in front of Lily. I told her people were making it sound worse than it was. I said mothers were allowed to joke about the uneven work of family life. Paige said I did not sound like a trapped mother. She said I sounded like our mother in reverse, not buried under service, but addicted to being served. That sentence followed me into Lily's room that night. Lily had fallen asleep with Mason's old grey hoodie pulled against her chest. One sleeve lay across her cheek. The room was lit by the little moon lamp on her dresser. Her pink backpack sat near the bed, packed for morning already. Mason had placed it there. He always did. The zipper was closed, the folder inside, the small star keychain turned outward. The room was so quiet I could hear the heater click in the hallway. For a few seconds, I did not move. Lily's fingers were closed around the hoodie string. The fabric smelled like Mason's laundry soap and the cedar drawer liners he used because Lily liked the scent. She did not look angry in sleep. She looked anchored. A thought came close enough to touch me. Maybe Lily was not choosing the easy parent. Maybe she was choosing the parent whose love had a routine, a smell, a place to land. Maybe I had been calling him a servant because the other word would have made me owe him something. I stood there with my hand on the doorframe until my fingers hurt. Then I closed the door in my head. Children loved the parent who said yes. Children loved comfort. Children did not understand how much women gave up to become mothers. Of course Lily wanted the softer place. That did not mean the softer place was right. The next morning I tried a controlled compromise. I packed Lily's lunch myself. Turkey sandwich, grapes, a chocolate biscuit because Mason always said Friday could have one sweet thing. I placed it in the pink backpack and waited for Mason to notice. He did. He opened the lunchbox and asked if I had checked whether Friday was nut-free snack share day. It was. I had forgotten the class list. He did not say it cruelly. That was the problem. He simply took out the biscuit and replaced it with crackers. My compromise failed before breakfast. That evening, Mason sat at the table after Lily slept. He had his laptop open and a notebook beside him. No papers that looked official. No big announcement. Just school emails, calendar notes, pickup times, doctor appointments, and little squares of his handwriting. I asked if he was building another case against me. He said he was trying to keep things clear. Of course, I told myself clear meant dramatic, clear meant punishment. Clear meant he had decided to make ordinary family work into proof. Then Lily came out of her room and asked Mason if she could stay with Aunt Paige for the weekend if Mommy kept being mean. Mason closed the laptop slowly. The apartment walls seemed to move closer. The school reading afternoon took place in the library, where the carpet smelled faintly of glue and old paper. Small chairs had been arranged in rows, and the children sat with books in their laps while parents leaned against shelves or crouched beside them. The thing is, I came because I was trying. 2 signed forms, 1 paperback book, and of course nobody wanted to count that part. Mason was there before me. He sat near Lily with her cardigan folded over his knee, her water bottle at his feet, and the reading sheet signed in blue ink. The pink backpack rested beside his chair. He had not saved me a seat, or maybe he had and someone had taken it. Either way, I stood near the shelf of animal books feeling like a guest in my daughter's life. Brielle texted while the teacher explained the schedule. She wrote that St. Dad Energy was a performance and that I should stop letting him own the room. I looked at Mason helping Lily find her page. His finger moved under the words while she whispered them. He looked patient. The kind of patient that made other people admire him. The kind of patient that made me feel like I was being judged without anyone opening their mouth. When the first group finished reading, Ms. Patel stepped in quietly near the back of the library. Kendra was there too, helping her son sound out a page. Paige had not come, even though I had told her about the event. She said she had work. I did not believe her. I walked over to Mason and Lily with a smile that felt too bright on my face. I told Lily she sounded great. Lily nodded and leaned closer to Mason. That small lean did it. I told Mason, softly enough to pretend it was private but loud enough for the nearest parents to hear, that he could stop playing the wounded hero. He asked me not to do this at school. That should have stopped me. It did not. The words at school made me hear control. They made me hear a man telling me when and where I was allowed to speak. So I made my voice lighter. Lightness had saved me so many times before. I said Mason loved acting like the family servant after spending years choosing that role. I said he carried everything, then looked sad when people assumed carrying was his job. A father by the window turned his head. Kendra stopped correcting her son's page. Ms. Patel looked up. Mason stood. Not fast. He asked me to step into the hallway. He said Lily did not need to hear more of this. I told him Lily had heard plenty already because he had made his silence the loudest thing in our house. Then I said the one thing he could not deny. I said he never told me he was drowning. He never asked me to carry half. He made the work invisible, then punished me when I did not worship it. The library seemed to hold that sentence. Mason looked at me, and for the first time that day his face opened. Not anger, not victory, just sadness without its coat on. He said I was right that he should have spoken sooner. He said he thought making life easier for us was the same as being loved by us. For one small breath there was a place where we could have stopped. Then I refused it. I told him not to use Lily to make himself look noble. I said he was not the only tired person in the family. I said I had carried her before he ever packed a backpack. Lily began to cry. Not loudly. She pressed her mouth shut like she was trying to keep the sound from becoming another problem Mason had to solve. Ms. Patel came closer and asked Lily if she wanted to sit in her office for a minute. Lily nodded before either of us answered. I said Lily was fine. I said this was adult tension, and children sometimes made it larger. Ms. Patel did not move away. She told me Lily had the right to take a moment. That sentence was polite. It still moved me out of the center of my own scene. In the counselor's office, visible through the library window, Lily sat in a blue chair with both hands wrapped around her water bottle. Mason stood outside the door at first. Ms. Patel invited him in. She did not invite me yet. That was the first door. When I was allowed inside, Lily did not look at me. She told Ms. Patel she wanted to live with Dad. She said Dad took care of her. She said Mom made Dad sad. She said she did not want Daddy to be the servant anymore. Servant. The word came back in her small voice and sounded worse than it had in mine. I tried to explain that children repeat adult words. I said Lily was upset and confused. I said Mason had been letting her think I was the bad parent because I worked and had a life. Mason did not argue. He only said they would handle things properly. No legal words, no threat. Just that calm, careful sentence. The thing is, I wanted a fight then. A fight would have given me heat, proof, something to answer. Instead, Mason became logistical. He collected Lily's cardigan. He picked up the pink backpack. He asked Ms. Patel if Lily could finish the day in the counselor's office. Ms. Patel said that might be best. Best. Another polite word with a locked door inside it. I texted Brielle from the hallway. First one message, then another, then a third. 2 check marks. No answer. After 10 minutes, she sent only a heart reaction. It looked small on the screen. It felt like someone had closed a gate and left me outside with my own voice. By the time school ended, Mason walked out with Lily, and nobody asked if I needed a ride. Kendra stood near the curb with her son and looked past me. Ms. Patel spoke quietly to Mason near the office door. Paige called him, not me. Not. I knew because his phone lit up with her name while he held Lily's hand. At home, he packed an overnight bag for Lily. Not angrily. Pajamas, toothbrush, school clothes, the stuffed rabbit with one loose ear. Lily stood beside him and watched every item go in. I asked if he was taking my daughter away because I made one bad joke. He turned then. His final offer came clean, without decoration. He said I could stop defending the joke and start seeing the child. I told him not to speak to me like a counselor. He zipped the bag. That was the silent decision marker. The sound was small, but it ended the conversation. Mason left with Lily for Paige's house. He carried the overnight bag. Lily carried the pink backpack herself. I stood in the hallway and told myself this was temporary because dramatic men always needed an audience before they came home. The apartment stayed quiet long after the elevator doors closed. The family mediation office sat on the second floor of a brick building near the courthouse, above a tax service and a dentist that advertised payment plans in the window. The waiting room smelled like coffee, printer paper, and rain from coats drying on plastic chairs. The thing is, I went there expecting a conversation about misunderstandings. 1 folder, 2 signatures, and of course Mason had made it look more serious than it needed to be. He was already there when I arrived. Paige sat near the wall with her hands folded around her phone. Mason sat beside Lily, and Lily's pink backpack rested against his chair. The mediator called us into a small room with a round table. She introduced the document as a petition for temporary parenting orders. She said Mason was requesting primary residential time until the first family court hearing, scheduled for the following month. I took the copy she slid toward me and straightened the top page with both hands. The paper would not sit square. I kept moving it until the mediator stopped speaking and waited. The petition named the pickup line incident, the reading afternoon, Lily's statement to Ms. Patel, and Mason's daily care records. School emails, doctor contacts, dance payments, lunch accounts, absence notes. The boring things I had called his natural place had been listed one under another until they became a map of who had been raising our daughter. I said Mason was punishing me for wanting a life outside motherhood. The mediator looked at her notes and asked which school forms I usually handled, which medical contacts listed me first, and which weekly routines I managed without Mason's reminder. No cruelty, no sympathy, just a question with nowhere soft to land. I touched my necklace clasp 3 times before answering. Then I said less than I needed to say. Mason said I could have joined him at any time. He said the work had never been beneath me until I started needing it to be beneath him. Brielle did not come. Later, while Mason spoke with the mediator, she texted that she could not be involved because the school situation had become too serious. That evening, the little video from Pickup was gone from her story highlights. Mason and Lily stayed at Paige's for 2 weeks, then moved into a rented 2-bedroom close enough for Lily to walk to school with him. I learned which bills Mason had been covering when the dance studio payment failed, and the lunch account sent my phone its first warning. Kendra stopped speaking to me at Pickup, Alina unfollowed me, and Paige answered only messages about Lily. Brielle said she never meant for me to take the joke that far. At work, the Still Her campaign kept running, but the room changed when someone mentioned mothers needing support. The thing is, I thought being served proved I had survived motherhood without disappearing. Of course, I called it freedom when Mason packed the bag, signed the form, learned the schedule, and carried the weight I refused to name. What it cost me was not help. It was the child who knew the difference between service and love before I did. The hook by the door stayed empty where the pink backpack used to hang. I wanted a servant, and my daughter chose her father.